I want you to imagine just walking into this wildly popular, highly reviewed restaurant, right? Like a Friday night.
Oh, man. I can already picture the stress.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The atmosphere is electric, but it is completely chaotic because the front of house staff, they just booked, I don't know, 500 reservations.
Wow, 500.
Yeah, 500.
Yeah.
They ran this incredibly successful viral online promo, and people are literally lined up down the block.
Sounds like a good problem to have, right?
You'd think so? But there's a massive structural problem. The kitchen staff, the people actually buying the raw ingredients and cooking the meals, they only procured enough food for 200 people.
Oh, no. That is, that's the absolute definition of a supply and demand nightmare right there.
Right. Because you have all these angry customers sitting at empty tables.
Yep, and a deeply stressed out kitchen staff facing impossible odds.
Exactly. And a brilliant marketing promo that, ironically, just damaged the restaurant's long-term reputation.
Yeah, they're getting one-star reviews for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And, well, the craziest part of that whole scenario, that exact disconnect, that specific type of internal blindness, it happens on a multi-million, sometimes multi-billion-dollar scale in corporate business every single day.
It really does. It's wild.
Right. So the sales team, they promised the moon to get their commissions, and the manufacturing side is just left staring at an empty warehouse, wondering how they're supposed to bend the laws of physics to deliver.
Which is exactly what we're getting into today.
Yes, exactly. Welcome to today's Deep Dive. I'm your host, and with me is our resident supply chain expert. Today, our mission is to figure out how massive enterprises actually prevent this chaos. We are looking at a stack of sources today, including industry-standard supply chain frameworks from organizations like GS1 US.
Which is a huge standards organization.
Right. And we also have some corporate case studies from giants like Whirlpool and Lowe's. We're going to unpack all of it.
And it is a massive undertaking, I have to say, because this whole journey today is fundamentally about how businesses balance two inherently opposing forces.
Okay, let's unpack this. What are those two forces?
Well, on one side, you have the desire to satisfy every single bit of customer demand, to maximize your market share.
You want to feed all 500 people at the restaurant.
Exactly. But on the other side, you have the financial reality of only satisfying the demand that your current manufacturing and logistical capacity can actually handle profitably.
Right. You only have food for 200.
Exactly. So how do they bridge that gap?
So we're going to explore this in two halves. First, how companies get their own internal houses in order using this rigorous framework called Sales and Operations Planning, or S&OP.
Very important acronym.
Yes, S&OP. And then we're going to push out past the corporate walls to look at something called CPFR, which is a system that gets entirely different companies to act as one single organism.
It's like corporate symbiosis.
Basically, yeah. So let's start with the internal mechanics. When a company realizes its sales team and its manufacturing team are basically living on different planets, they usually implement S&OP. So what exactly is the mechanism here?
Right. So S&OP stands for both the sales and operations plan, as in the final physical document they produce, and the sales and operations planning process itself.
Okay, so it's the meeting and the paperwork.
Yeah, pretty much. It's this very tactical routine. Usually this operates on a strict monthly rhythm.
Like clockwork.
Exactly. The whole goal is to force sales, marketing, product development, manufacturing, and finance all into the exact same room to create one integrated, agreed-upon set of numbers.
That sounds like a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
It is. But a crucial detail here is that they don't do this for every single individual item they sell. They do it at an aggregate level, looking at what we call product families.
Product families. So they aren't looking at, say, the blue V-neck T-shirt in a size medium?
No. They are looking at the entire summer apparel line as a single block.
Wait, really? Why not get specific? I mean, wouldn't more detail be better for the factory so they know exactly what to make?
You'd think so, but it sounds counterintuitive. But no, you want to look at the aggregate level because it's actually much more statistically reliable.
Oh, because predicting exactly who wants a medium blue shirt is too hard.
Exactly. Forecasting the exact demand for that specific medium blue V-neck is almost impossible. Consumer whims change daily.
Right. Maybe green is suddenly in next Tuesday.
Yeah, precisely. But if you forecast for the whole summer apparel product family, the random high and low variances of all those individual items, they tend to cancel each other out.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, the law of large numbers basically takes over. It gives the supply chain a much more stable target to hit.
That makes total sense. You're basically aiming for the broad side of a barn rather than a bullseye.
Yeah.
So how does this monthly cycle actually operate in practice? Because getting all these different teams to agree just sounds like herding cats.
Oh, it is definitely herding cats. It usually kicks off right after the books close on the previous month. The very first phase is all about data gathering and demand planning.
Okay, crunching the numbers.
Right. You update your statistical forecasts based on the actual sales data that literally just came in. Once you have that mathematical baseline, you hold the demand review meeting.
And this is where the friction really starts, isn't it? Because based on the case studies we're looking at, you've got product managers defending their new features.
Oh, they fight hard for their features.
Yeah. And the marketing team wants to push a brand new initiative. And then you have the sales professionals who are entirely motivated by their quarterly quotas.
Exactly. Everyone has a different agenda. And the fascinating dynamic here is who is actually in charge of that room.
Right. Who mediates that?
The highest ranking demand side professional. So that's usually the VP of sales or marketing chairs this meeting. But there's also a very specific role called the demand manager present.
And they are sort of the referee?
Yes, they act as a neutral facilitator.
I found the psychology of this demand manager role just incredible. They're essentially a corporate UN peacekeeper, right?
That's a perfect way to put it.
Because marketing might say, hey, our new ad campaign is going to drive demand up 20%. And then sales might chime in and say, well, our major client just went bankrupt, so demand is actually going to drop 10%.
Yep. And the demand manager has to somehow reconcile that math. They have to document all the assumptions behind everyone's wild claims and literally force them into a single consensus number.
And the consensus isn't just like a casual, yeah, sure, sounds good agreement.
Oh, definitely not. It results in what is often called the marketing and sales handshake. It is a legally, internally binding commitment.
I really want to emphasize the stakes of this handshake for everyone listening right now, because this isn't just asking the factory for a bunch of stuff. This handshake requires a firm commitment to two things simultaneously.
Right, it's a two-way street.
Yeah. You are committing to a specific request for a volume of product, yes. But you're also committing to the promotional activities, the marketing spend, and the sales hustle required to actually generate that exact amount of demand.
Exactly. You can't just ask for 1 million units just to be safe and, hope they sell.
Because then the warehouse is full of unsold junk.
Right. You have to prove how you're going to sell them, and you are held accountable to that specific marketing spend. So once that demand consensus is reached and that first handshake happens, that plan is basically handed over the wall to operations for the supply planning phase.
Right. The big reality check. The operations team receives this wish list, and they hold their own supply review meeting.
Yes. And their entire mandate during this phase is to identify any capacity or inventory constraints that would prevent the company from satisfying that demand plan.
So they're looking at things like factory hours.
Factory hours, machine maintenance schedules, raw material availability, and even logistics bottlenecks. Like, do we have enough trucks?
They need to figure out if the kitchen actually has enough raw ingredients and line cooks for the 500 reservations.
Exactly. Back to your restaurant analogy.
But wait, here is where I have to call out a reality of corporate politics, right? The sales team's entire compensation structure is often based on hitting these aggressive growth targets.
Oh, 100%. They want those bonuses.
So if operations looks at the plan and just says, we literally don't have the factory space to build this, the sales team isn't just going to accept that. They'll lose their commissions.
Mm-hmm.
So what actual levers can operations pull when there's a mismatch?
Well, it is a highly contentious moment, which is why operations can't just say, no, that's not allowed. When supply cannot meet demand, the operations team is required to propose specific, calculated alternatives.
Okay, so they come with solutions.
Yes. And there are 3 main strategies they usually model. The first one is a level strategy.
Okay, let's break that down. How does a level strategy solve a spike in demand?
Basically, by producing a steady level amount of product throughout the entire year, completely regardless of when the demand actually is.
Oh, I see. So it's flat production.
Exactly. Let's say you sell snow shovels, right? And you know a massive seasonal spike is coming in November. A level strategy means you produce way above demand in April, May, and June, and you just let that inventory accumulate.
You just stockpile it.
Yep. You build up a massive surplus in warehouses, so you are totally ready when the winter spike hits.
But warehousing isn't free. I mean, if I'm building snow shovels in May, I'm tying up my company's cash and raw materials. I'm paying to store them. I'm paying to insure them.
And you're taking the risk that maybe it doesn't snow this year.
Exactly. And then I'm stuck with thousands of shovels.
You've nailed the exact downside. The carrying costs are just huge. So if finance shoots down the level strategy, because they usually don't want all that cash tied up in inventory operations, we'll propose the second option, which is a chase strategy.
Chasing the demand in real time.
Exactly that. You keep your inventory low, and you literally chase the demand fluctuations by aggressively ramping your capacity up or down.
How do you ramp up a factory that fast?
Well, if demand spikes, you hire temporary workers, you add second or third shifts, you authorize massive amounts of overtime, or you rapidly outsource production to a third-party manufacturer.
But that sounds like a margin killer.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Because if I'm paying time and a half for overtime, or I'm hiring a more expensive third-party contractor just to hit the volume, my profit per unit is dropping significantly.
Big time.
Not to mention, if you are bringing in temporary workers at 3 a.m. to run a third shift, your quality control is absolutely going to take a hit.
It is incredibly margin destructive and super risky for quality, which is exactly why operations professionals have to present the specific costs associated with this chase strategy.
They have to show the receipts.
Yeah. They have to show the sales team that, yes, we can hit your volume, but the company is going to make significantly less money doing it.
Which brings us to the most brutal option. What happens if neither the level strategy nor the chase strategy works? Say you don't have warehouse space, and there simply isn't anyone left to hire for a third shift.
The absolute last resort is going back to sales and marketing and telling them to reduce the demand plan.
Ouch.
Yeah. You literally say, we cannot build this. You have to sell less.
Uh-huh.
But in practice, you don't just stop selling. You use a tactic called demand shaping.
Demand shaping. That sounds like corporate jargon.
Oh.
How do you shape a customer into not wanting something?
The easiest way is price. You increase the price of the highly constrained product. That naturally cools off consumer demand, while simultaneously increasing your profit margins on the units you actually can sell.
Supply and demand 101.
Exactly. Or, alternatively, you steer customers towards substitute products that you do have a surplus of, maybe by putting those substitutes on sale.
I can hear the marketing team screaming from here.
Oh, they hate it.
I mean, they just spent 6 months and $10 million building brand affinity and launching a massive campaign for this specific flagship product. And operations is telling them to hike the price and tell customers to buy the older model instead.
Yeah, it is a corporate bloodbath. It is deeply unpopular, but sometimes structurally necessary. Now, as you can imagine, the UN Peacekeeper Demand Manager, they cannot authorize $1 million in factory overtime.
Right, that's above their pay grade.
Way above.
Yeah.
And they certainly can't unilaterally decide to raise the price of a flagship product.
Which means this whole thing has to escalate. Which takes us to the next phase of S&OP, the pre-executive meeting. This is where the demand manager, the plant managers, the logistics heads, and critically, someone from finance all lock themselves in a room.
Finance is the ultimate referee here. Any plan they make has to actually make financial sense for the company.
So what's the goal of this pre-meeting?
The purpose is to resolve the minor disputes they can handle on their own and to clearly define the major financial standoffs they can't. They filter out the noise so that when they finally bring this to the big bosses, the executives are only looking at the critical, contentious items.
And that leads to the culmination of the entire monthly cycle, the executive S&OP meeting. So the CEO, or a top executive sponsor, steps in alongside the heads of demand, supply, and finance. This isn't just a status update, is it?
Not at all. The executives are not there to rubber stamp a spreadsheet. The entire reason S&OP exists is for this specific moment, comparing the tactical monthly demand plan against the overarching strategic business plan of the company.
Because the business plan is the long-term vision. It's the promise the CEO made to Wall Street and the shareholders.
Precisely. The executives have to look at these handshakes and compromises and ask the hard questions. Are we still hitting our revenue goals? Are our profit margins intact? If operations needs a massive capital investment for a chase strategy, does that align with our long-term financial health?
The big picture stuff.
Exactly. The executives are the ones who make the final judgment calls on those massive trade-offs.
And the end result of all this friction, all these meetings, and this executive arbitration is the holy grail of S&OP. It's the one-number system.
Yes, a single unified demand forecast and production plan.
Yeah.
And the entire company is legally and operationally bound to execute it.
And communicating that one-number system is critical, right? Sales needs to know exactly what they're allowed to sell without overpromising, and operations needs to know exactly what they're authorized to build without wasting capital.
It puts everyone on the exact same page. Finally.
Okay, so here is where this gets truly fascinating. Because everything we just spent time unpacking, the peacekeepers, the handshakes, the executive sign-offs, that is all happening inside a single corporate entity.
Right, within one company.
S&OP is a phenomenal tool for getting your own house in order. But what happens when your supply chain relies on entirely different companies?
That's where things get really complicated.
Like, what if your factory is a contract manufacturer in Vietnam, your delivery trucks are owned by a third-party logistics firm, and your primary dining room, to go back to our restaurant analogy, is a massive retail chain like Costco or Lowe's? You can't exactly summon the CEO of Costco into your internal monthly S&OP meeting to negotiate demand shaping.
No, you definitely cannot do that. And you've identified the fundamental limitation of internal planning. In a modern globalized economy, optimizing your own silo just isn't enough anymore.
You have to look outside.
Right. And that realization is why the industry developed a rigorous standard called collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment. It's universally referred to as CPFR.
Let's really dig into this. What is CPFR fundamentally doing differently than regular S&OP?
So CPFR is a framework managed by GS1 US, which is a major information standards organization. It's designed to extend that rigorous planning process we just discussed across enterprise boundaries.
Across completely separate companies.
Exactly. It forces the logistics, marketing, and forecasting departments of multiple entirely separate organizations to sync up and basically act as one single supply chain.
Wow.
It's heavily utilized in fast-moving consumer goods, or FMCG. The sources highlight massive players utilizing this framework. Companies like Sam's Club, Best Buy, Costco. In fact, Whirlpool and Lowe's use CPFR to deeply integrate their respective internal S&OP processes.
I have to stop you there, though, because the mechanics of this sound insane from a business leverage perspective.
How so?
Well, a massive retailer like a Lowe's or a Costco is famous for squeezing their suppliers for every single penny. You're telling me they're going to voluntarily open up their books?
It sounds unlikely, I know.
Right. They are going to share their internal point-of-sale data, their hypersensitive sales forecasts, and their strategic promotional plans with the manufacturer. Doesn't that destroy their negotiation leverage? Information is power in retail.
Your skepticism is completely justified. And it points to the exact reason why CPFR is so difficult to achieve. It requires a massive cultural shift.
I bet.
CPFR fails completely without extreme transparency and trust. You have to move from an adversarial relationship where you are fighting over margins to a collaborative one where you recognize that waste in the supply chain hurts both of you. Both companies have to agree to speak with what GS1 US explicitly calls one voice.
But how do they actually achieve that one voice? Practically. I mean, they aren't just emailing Excel spreadsheets back and forth, hoping the other side reads them.
No, definitely not. It requires significant capital investment in shared technology. They use integrated shared servers and web-based platforms. They are feeding raw data into joint systems for immediate automated access.
Real-time data.
Yes. GS1 US makes this very clear. If there is no automated data sharing, there is no CPFR. It allows for real-time visibility into inventory levels, automated revisions to forecasts, and system-generated exception alerts when something goes off track.
Okay, so assuming two massive companies manage to achieve this supply chain nirvana of trust and shared tech infrastructure, how does the CPFR model actually execute? What is the day-to-day mechanism here?
The GS1 US model breaks the process down into 4 major continuous activities. The very first phase is strategy and planning.
Okay, phase 1.
This is where the retailer and the manufacturer sit down and set the ground rules. They define the scope of the collaboration, and most importantly, they create a joint business plan.
A joint business plan, meaning they are literally planning corporate events together months in advance.
Exactly. They're coordinating major initiatives like a seasonal rollout or a massive retail promotion.
So who does what in that planning?
Well, the manufacturer focuses on the broad market planning. They know the macro trends for their products across all stores. But the retailer handles the category management. They know how their specific floor space and customer demographics behave in their exact locations. They align these strategies before a single purchase order is ever drafted.
Which naturally leads to the second phase, demand and supply management. This is the forecasting phase, right? But because it's collaborative, the data has got to be totally different from internal S&OP.
Oh, completely. In a traditional setup, a manufacturer only knows what the retailer ordered last month. They are essentially blind to what the consumer is doing on the ground.
They just see the wholesale orders.
Right. But in CPFR, they bring different complementary data to the shared server. The manufacturer brings broad market data analysis, but the retailer brings real-time point-of-sale forecasting. The manufacturer sees exactly what is scanning at the cash registers in real time.
That is massive. That solves the bullwhip effect, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
For listeners unfamiliar, the bullwhip effect is this terrifying phenomenon in supply chains where a tiny fluctuation in consumer demand gets amplified as it moves up the chain.
It's a classic supply chain disaster.
Yeah, you're like, a store sells 10 extra units, so they order 20 just to be safe. The distributor sees an order for 20, so they order 50 from the factory to have a buffer. Suddenly, the factory is authorizing overtime to build 50 units when the actual market demand only increased by 10.
That is a perfect explanation of the bullwhip effect. And yes, sharing point-of-sale data is how CPFR destroys it because the manufacturer isn't reacting to the distributor's buffered orders anymore. They are looking at the cash register data right alongside the retailer.
They see the 10 units, not the 50.
Exactly. They combine this insight to do joint order planning and replenishment planning. There is no guesswork. There is no artificial buffering.
That level of visibility is just incredible. And I imagine that sets up the third phase. Execution.
Execution is the core logistics. It's the order-to-cash cycle. This involves generating the order, manufacturing the product, preparing shipments, receiving the products at the retail loading dock, recording the transactions, and finally making the payments.
The actual moving of boxes and money.
Exactly. But because of CPFR, this execution is often highly automated.
Meaning the manufacturer doesn't even wait for the retailer to place an order.
Frequently, no. Because the manufacturer can see the retailer's inventory dropping in real time on the shared server, the manufacturer can automatically generate a replenishment shipment to keep the store stocked.
Wow.
And it's perfectly timed to arrive just as the shelves are emptying.
I really want to tie this directly to the real world for you listening. If you have ever walked into a massive big box store, say it's the third week of August, and you notice a perfectly arranged massive mountain of back-to-school supplies, or a flawless display of Halloween candy right at the entrance.
You're looking at CPFR in action.
Yes. You are looking at the execution phase of CPFR. That mountain of product didn't just show up because a store manager made a good guess. You are looking at the physical result of a manufacturer and a retailer sharing data months in advance to perfectly time that logistical ballet.
It really is a logistical ballet.
It's the ultimate evolution of the handshake we talked about internally. It has moved from interdepartmental peacemaking to intercompany synchronization.
It is, but even ballets have missteps, right? Which is why the fourth and final phase of CPFR is absolutely crucial. Analysis.
A scorecard phase.
Essentially, yes. In the analysis phase, the supply chain partners monitor all their planning and execution activities against the shared data to identify exceptions.
Exceptions like what?
Well, if a shipment was late or if a promotion didn't drive the expected volume, the system flags it. They keep rigorous scorecards on each other's performance. They analyze what went wrong, share the insights, and adjust their future joint business plans. It is a closed-loop system of continuous improvement.
It is truly staggering when you step back and look at the whole picture. I mean, we started this deep dive in that chaotic, disconnected restaurant kitchen, looking at the structural nightmare that happens when demand outpaces supply.
And we explored how companies solve that internally, relying on the rigorous monthly rhythm of S&OP.
Right. We saw the demand manager acting as a diplomat, the very real financial friction of the handshakes between sales and operations, and the ultimate executive arbitration to protect the business plan.
And then we saw how the most advanced, globally competitive supply chains push past their own walls. They take those same principles of alignment and apply them externally through CPFR.
Leveraging trust, shared technology, and point-of-sale data to eliminate the bullwhip effect and act as one highly efficient, unified machine. It is a colossal undertaking just to make sure the right product is on the shelf when you reach for it.
It definitely gives you a new appreciation for the grocery store.
It really does. But as we wrap up, I want to pose a question for everyone listening about where this is all heading. Because based on all the sources we've unpacked, there's a fascinating tension emerging.
You're thinking about the human element versus the technology.
Exactly. We spent so much time today talking about handshakes, human negotiations, the demand manager facilitating a contentious room, operations arguing over overtime costs, executives making a judgment call based on intuition and strategy.
The messy human stuff.
Right. But as CPFR requires more and more real-time, shared data through automated web servers, and as artificial intelligence gets exponentially better at demand sensing and pattern recognition, we have to ask, how long will those human handshakes remain the core of corporate planning?
It challenges the entire paradigm, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We are already seeing automated replenishment. The next logical step is automated strategic planning.
Will the future of sales and operations planning become completely algorithmic, seamlessly adjusting factory output in real time based on a consumer scanning a barcode halfway across the world?
Or, when millions of dollars in shareholder promises are on the line, will the nuanced reality of human negotiation and executive intuition always be required to truly balance supply and demand?
Will the algorithm run the restaurant kitchen? Or will we always need a human head chef to step in and make the hard calls when the reservations get out of hand? It is a fascinating space to watch. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.